small presentation tonight. People I asked to come up got sick. But I wanted to open this up with this reading from the 24-hour day book. It says, "Can I get well? If I mean, can I ever drink normally again? The answer is no. But if I mean, can I stay sober? The answer is definitely yes. I can get well by turning my drink problem over to a power greater than myself." When I speak, I always open up with that, because it rings true in my heart. If I want to get well, I have to turn it over to my higher power. I have a couple speakers going to speak tonight. My friend Dan, he stayed at the Rebos House, and Kay Dixon's going to say a few words also. But I wanted to read the history of the Rebos House. Since 1958, the Rebos House has provided a safe and clean environment for adult men who have a serious problem with alcohol and drugs in their past. Our mission is to reach out our hand to offer a temporary home so men can focus on rebuilding their lives in recovery. Rebos House is a non-profit and uses 100% of its donations for operating expenses. Rebos House provides a structured level of support that is sometimes required for individuals to see hope instead of failure. With a stable foundation, many have been able to return to society and live a productive life. Over the years, the Rebos House has been blessed to receive generous contributions, financial support, and valued wisdom from many compassionate people to counter this cunning, baffling, powerful disease. Unfortunately, some of our donors have passed away. And in the last couple of years, causing a need to find new and renewed support to maintain our mission. To continue our ability to offer a helping hand in providing food, shelter, utilities, and much needed compassion with members in recovery since 1958, we had asked you to consider supporting Rebos House. Now I got a note from Mary Beth Duffy. Jim Duffy passed away 2 years ago this past October. And although she wanted to come, she's still grieving. So she sent a message to the people who did come. It says, "Dear friends, thank you so much for honoring Jim and Bill at your annual dinner tonight. Jim served to be the Rebos House, was always a part of him giving back for what was frequently given to him. He would often say that the Rebos House saved my life. And so he worked hard to keep it open for others. I am sorry that I could not be there with you tonight, but I know that I will be overwhelmed by the memory. His work, the importance of this night, and all the others have given. Even after 2 years, I think of him every day. Thank you so much for understanding. Love, Mary Beth. Okay, now I'm gonna introduce Kay Dixon. She's gonna say a few words, and then we're gonna.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. You know how much Bill cared about the Rebos House. He loved it. He loved the idea of the Rebos House. He loved the idea that men who were struggling had a place to come and live and stay. And he made a particular kind of contribution, which was in the area mostly of fundraising. Now, it's a community. I mean, people, when I look out here, I see that everybody has a different role to play. The most important are those men who live there, starting with them. They are the most important part of it. The managers, I think of the people over the years who took responsibility to run the place. I think of so many of our absent friends, really. Joe Schweinberg and others. And I think of other absent friends, old-timers who used to go over to the Rebos House and just sit around and share their experiences, their strength, their hope with the folks who lived there. I'm thinking about Duke Hanna and Marty Lydon and folks like that. And I think about people on the Board of Trustees. I mean, that's a job. That's a real big job. And then when this dinner business started, we had these chefs. Another absent friend passed away is Ed Linder. Used to make gallons and gallons and gallons with his friends and sponsees at his own home, and then carted over to St. Stephen's in Hazelwood. And then after him, Malone, when, again, someone who has died. This is getting to be a kind of a sad sort of story, isn't it? But anyway, Bill's contribution was generally in the area of fundraising, as you know, and he loved to do it. He was certainly not professional. He was too heavy-handed. He would just yell at people, and I mean, if he didn't even know them, people on the street, hey, listen, got a couple bucks here. I've got a sad story, and they would sometimes they'd give, and sometimes they didn't. I picked up the phone one day, and it was a man that I knew slightly, and I know he had gone to school with Bill, 50 years before. He didn't know anything about alcoholism. He didn't know the Rebos House. He didn't know how to pronounce it. Bill had sent him a letter or telephoned him or something, and he said to me, he said, "Kay, tell him not to be calling me like this." He said, "I don't know anything about this. This isn't my thing. I give money to other things." I happen to know this fellow was interested in the arts, his wife too, music. He was on the board of the opera, I guess, and the Carnegie Museum, and he didn't want anything to, will you tell him, he said, "Is this even a 501c? And I said, "Oh, yes it is, yes it is, yes it is." So I did tell him, and Bill just kind of, he said, oh well, it didn't, he wasn't embarrassed, and that's the secret of his success. He never was embarrassed by doing any of that. Keep trying, you keep trying, you keep trying, you fall down, you don't make it, and sometimes things work out. And I was thinking tonight that some of that influence of his is still reaching out, and I'll tell you a story. A man called me this week to say that he was not going to make it. This week he had planned to come, and I knew that he'd planned to come. And something had come up, and he wasn't going to make it. And then he said to me, "Now, Kay, when you say your prayers tonight, if you're talking to Bill, would you tell him that I can't make it to the dinner, but that I sent in my money?" So I think sometimes, they're floating. There's some pressure even now coming over from Calvary Cemetery. Bill would be 60 years sober this 15th of this month, November 15th. get sober in 1962. So he didn't quite make that goal. He did have that, I think, in his mind sometimes. I thought that, but he never said that. But in any case, I know he would be very pleased to see you here tonight. And he'd be looking forward to even more people coming next year and more money being raised for the house even next year. So I thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you all again.
Okay, now tell me the truth. Do I look like an Irish gangster? That's what people said. You look like an Irish gangster. I said, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's a nice turnout. Thank you very much. Let's give a hand out to the cook. Thanks, Tom. Dan, who lived in the Rebos House for a few months, is going to come up and share a little bit of his experience at the house. Dan, would you come up and speak, please?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but my name's Dan. I'm an alcoholic.
You're allowed.
And, you know, the Rebos House, I knew about it way before I ever needed to live there. And it was the only place that I could go because my wife, we had gotten married, and then I started drinking again. And she told me when I told her that I need to go back to a rehab or something, I thought you said you didn't drink anymore. I said, well, I'm an alcoholic. Anyway, it kind of made it for a rough situation. I got sober again February 20th of 2018, and I had been struggling with it since 2002 when I first came into the program. And what had happened was she finally had it in her mind. She was getting more angry. And so she told me, you got to go. Middle of July of 2018, I had gotten inheritance from my mom, spent it all. I had nowhere to go, and I knew Joe, who was running the house at that time, and he said, yeah, we can help you out. So I got there late one night, and I went to bed, and I stayed there for 2 months. But what it was over the 2 months is they accepted me for who I was, never asked any questions. There was a variety of people there. Some wanted to interact with other sober people, some stayed to themselves. But Joe would save me a plate. As long as I called and said, Joe, could you save me a plate? He would save me a plate, because I would go to some meetings, then I'd go to church and whatever, just because I was in such a bad way. I stayed there a couple months, and then I had moved back to the area where I was working. But the time I was there, everybody pitches in, and you know, if you clean, you wash dishes, and it was a service that was invaluable. And a lot of the fellas that I had known had stayed there maybe 2 months, 2 years, but it was available for the alcoholic or the addict, and I was just very grateful. I never realized till I thought back on the time I spent there, how grateful I was and how it kind of kept me out the streets. So anyway, that's my testimonial. I really am very grateful for this.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan.